All right, I think we are ready to begin. My name is Margaret Damaro, and I am the Academic Program Manager for Communication and Media Studies. And on behalf of the program, oh, thank you. I am a celebrity. See, this is perfect. I am famous. So on behalf of my program and Post University, I would like to welcome you all to our event celebrating Media Literacy Week, our second annual event. This is such an exciting time to study communication and media studies, as something new happens every single day with media and in media, always applicable to everything that we're talking about in class. Last year, or this year when I started planning this event, I kind of thought about, how to make it a little bit different than what it was last year. And I thought about what do the students talk about? What comes up, on a daily basis in class? And it's this idea of celebrity. This idea of who is a celebrity, who has the power to become a celebrity, and what connection does this all have with social media, and how social media allows us the opportunity to kind of interact with and access information about celebrities and to sort of become famous ourselves. And we all kind of want that fame, right? Anyone want to be famous in the room? Come on, you can admit it. Okay, so really, really exciting today also that media literacy is a topic that's kind of gaining prominence and a little bit of recognition, at least, around, in education and different, as it connects to different topics. So tonight I'm really excited to present this panel of experts who is going to discuss the idea of celebrity, the evolution and definition of what it has become in terms of social media and how we use it. So I'm going to briefly introduce our panelists, and then I will hand it off to our moderator, David, to begin the event. So first, I would like to introduce you to Alicia Muha, which is, she's sitting all the way over there. She is an established communication professional with a PR and strategic communication background. She is currently a press secretary for our state government, and she works with state legislators on press-related materials and works to develop a media presence for a variety of her clients. Next is Dr. Karen Burke, and we have two Karens today, so we'll figure out how to distinguish them. But this is Dr. Karen Burke. She is an associate professor in the Media Studies Department at Southern Connecticut State University. She has been teaching there for 28 years, and she earned her EDD from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Her expertise really involves the intersection of media and politics, propaganda and civic engagement, and media ownership. And she has done lots and lots of things that too long of a list to mention, but she did publish a workbook called AIMC, A Communication Tool for Life. Next, we have Marcus Stallworth. He is the Director of Learning and Organizational Development for Welcome to Reality Media. And that's a nonprofit organization that offers resources and workshops to schools, teachers, and parents regarding various topics, including media literacy. He was instrumental in helping to pass the law concerning social media curriculum in Connecticut. So he deserves a big round of applause for that. He also provides training, curriculum writing, and consultation services for the Child Welfare League of America, and is also an adjunct professor at the University of Bridgeport. Okay, and then we have the other Karen here, Dr. Karen Ritzenhoff. She is a professor in the Department of Communication at Central Connecticut State University. She's also affiliated with the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies program, as well as the Cinema Studies and Honors program there. She teaches courses in global visual communication, film history, and women's studies, and she has authored a number of books on topics of feminism, war, and film. Okay, and our moderator is David Ryan Polgar. He is a 3-time TEDx speaker. He explores our relationship with technology from an ethical, legal, emotional perspective. He works every day to improve the way kids, teens, and adults use media and technology. He has been featured on many, many different shows and publications, his writing and commentary, such as HuffPost Live, Boston Globe, Financial Times, and Sydney Morning Herald, and many, many more. He is the co-founder of the Digital Citizenship Summit, That's a conference that brings educators and parents and students together to promote safe, savvy, and ethical use of social media and technology. This year, his event had a global audience, and it was actually held at the Twitter headquarters, which is super cool. And he is a frequent speaker, consultant, and chief of trust and safety for the social messaging platform Friendbase. So I would like to invite him up so that he can start to lead our discussion on the topic of celebrity.
All right. How's everybody doing? By the end of tonight, we're all going to be famous. This is being filmed right now, just so you know. So we are looking for our Ken Bone. So I'm looking just around the audience, seeing who has a funny-looking sweater. But it seems like everybody here is looking a beautiful audience. So I don't know if we're going to have a Ken Bone today, but just to get us thinking right now, get you in the frame of audience, because this should be, we have a very talented group of experts, but at the same time, we should make this very interactive, right? We want the audience, we want you to be engaged, right? We're all here together. So one thing to think about, right? Who's on social media, right? Who has Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat? Okay. So we're all on social media. How much does Facebook, let's say, or Instagram or Twitter, how much do they pay you to post about a product? How much do they pay you? Right? Nothing. Nothing. How much do they pay LeBron James? A lot of money. So well, there you go. $300 million, 10-year contract. This should frame the conversation, because celebrity, as it relates to media literacy, our ability to consume and produce media in a critical manner, to think critically about it. Why do we pay LeBron James a lot of money to wear Nikes and not you or me? We must be thinking, Nike must be thinking, that LeBron James can influence your decision. So a lot of today's discussion is going to be around the idea of why and how celebrity influences our lifestyle decisions, our personal decisions, right? Because obviously we know that's the case. So Marcus, kind of moving on from left to right, what's your kind of conception right now of fame in the 21st century?
So first I just want to say hello, and you guys might not get this at the moment, but this is an incredible thing that Post is doing for you guys to have access to this stuff today, not because I'm here or these guys are here, but knowing that you guys are today's current future and progressive and moving forward, it's really amazing that you guys have this opportunity. Every school doesn't have this, so I just wanted to say that first. So, and I didn't get paid for that, right? So I just want to bring you back a little bit, like to a ground level piece, right? So think about when you guys were growing up, trying to use the potty. Can y'all remember that? Let me tell you something. It wasn't a long time for some of these people in this room, right? But think about this. So when you think of a little young person who's trying to use the bathroom, right? And what happens when you're trying and the little boy, the little girl goes pee-pee in the potty? What do? Yay! You went pee-pee in the potty. We clap and we celebrate, right? So what does it make a child want to do? So, well, guess what? I want some more juicy juice so I can go pee-pee in the potty again, right? So what does that translate into? So we have like a innate thing within ourselves that we want to get gratification and get validated. So when we do things and it feels good, like working hard, getting a report card, getting that 92 on the spelling bee, and your family hangs it on the refrigerator, right? That makes us feel good, and it makes us want to continue to do that. So in a lot of instances, people have taken that kind of mindset and they've transferred that into the new social media world that we live in. So people post things, they publicize things with the intent, hoping that they're going to get some type of validation, some type of gratification from that. And when they get that, it encourages them and excites them to want to continue to do it. And the more they do it and the more attention they get, it just kind of builds itself up. And then when you get to a point, some of the great projects I saw upstairs, once you get caught in that world, it's very, very difficult to live a normal existence. very similar to athletes, very similar why many folks retire, then come back, then retire and come back, right? Same type of mindset. So we're just living in a world where we just have to really be courageous about having some of these conversations. It's not to spoil folks' fun and be the corny old people in the room or none of that, but like, how do we have a real conversation to say, hey, can't change everything, but how can we kind of evaluate what we are doing and how might that impact us in the moment and down the road?
Marcus, if you don't mind us kind of drilling down a little bit on what you're saying, is part of the issue, and then for anybody to jump in, is part of the issue that we're constantly aware of our celebrity or lack thereof. So for example, if we were in a pre-social media age, you weren't under the awareness that you were or were not a celebrity, right? You had a clear distinction. You were either on TV or you were not on TV. And if you weren't on TV, you were just walking about your daily life, and you didn't have anything every day to either make you feel really good or make you feel really bad. But if right now, if you decide, okay, I'm a poet, tonight after this event, I'm going to post some poetry on social media, and then nobody likes it. Now you have a clear indication that what you posted is not validated if we're seeking out a sense of validation. Does any of you think this will change in the future? Do you think this is something that we need to put pressure on social media companies to change? Or do you think this is more kind of a personal decision?
That's a great question. So I think it's a combination of both, right? So at the end of the day, we all make our own individual decisions, but many of the decisions that we make are surrounded by external influences. So as long as somebody to the left of me is doing this and it appears that it's working for them, in my mind, I might say, well, shoot, if she can do it, not only can I do that, I probably could do it a little better, right? So then what happens over time, we start to up the ante. So there was a point in time where, in history, things continue to change. So there was a time where we used to have something called station wagons. Anybody ever see a station wagon before? Right? Still have one? So the station wagon used to have the seats in the back, and it was pretty cool. You could see the cars coming, right? We all thought it was fun, and we sit in the back, and when we turn, we say, wee, and it was a whole deal. What we started to realize was that was very, very unsafe, especially if folks had accidents, right? So what did? We realized that, hey, maybe this isn't the best idea, but unfortunately some things had to happen before we decided to reevaluate that. So where we're living right now in real time, there's no real regulation on how technology and social media works. At some point, I would imagine, back to your question, there will be some regulation. So my question to folks in the group, and not for you to say out loud, is say out loud, but how do we think about how this stuff is impacting us, and where do we want to land? Do we want to wait until there's regulations in place, or do we want to get a little more knowledge and understanding of how we can safeguard and protect ourselves?
So now, when we take it to the nth degree, and a celebrity, how do we deal with that in kind of this age of truthiness? There was a great video recently where an unknown individual, had a great idea. He said, why don't I just pretend I'm a celebrity? I'll hire somebody who will pretend like they're my assistant, and then I'll have people who start following me around, and then before you know it, and it worked. Before you know it, everybody assumes they've seen this person. They say, oh, wait a minute, I think I've seen him on CSI, and you fill in the blank, right? So, Marcus, kind of love to hear from your end. Do we have a tough time determining celebrity in today's day and age because it's so nebulous?
I think we do. So, there was a point in time where, let's say you liked the sport, right? And you liked Kobe Bryant, and you thought he was the greatest. We might have an argument, but you're entitled to your opinion, right? So maybe you had a poster on your wall or in your dorm or in your room, whatever the case is. Maybe when you play basketball a little bit, you shoot a shot, you be like, Kobe, right? Everybody's can identify that in different ways, right? And that's fine, but you knew that was that. So when you introduce social media, and then you have, like, say, oh, I'm Kobe Bryant's friend. I follow him on this site. I follow him on that site. In your mind, you're looking at these things to say, hey, I have an inside scoop. I have a connection in a relationship with these folks. And let me be clear, some people do manage their own pages, but there was a great post I saw earlier. There's some folks have thousands and thousands and millions of followers. Do you really think that somebody does 17 shows and 18 nights and they still have time to post and tweet 4, 5, 6 times a day, right? So if I told you you were standing outside a Subway at the bottom of the hill and there's a guy saying, hey, you got any spare change? You have any spare change, right? Maybe if you had a couple of coins, you might say, all right, what the heck? But if I told you, say, listen, this guy is a millionaire and he's telling you, can I get money? Because he believes you're going to give it to him. Would you be offended? Would you? Would you still want to give it to him next time you saw him? Probably not, right? So it's very important that folks really take a look and say, hey, people in many ways are taking advantage of the fact that people believe that these things are real and that people believe that this is the reality, and they're guaranteeing and baking that you young folks are not educated, I'm going to say these words, and are too lazy to do your own homework and research. Now, I like to believe that that's furthest from the truth, but they're investing time to do that. So how many folks in this room like other people telling them what to do? 9 times out of 10, someone tells you what to do, what do you want to do? Do the opposite because they told you what to do, right? So we just want you to be able to start thinking and take a step back. And I think Alicia gives a great perspective. So she's doing some wonderful work with legislature, right? And say, hey, they don't have the manpower and the ability to manage all these things, but I can disseminate things on their behalf. I just wonder who else is in different roles that are doing the same thing with the hopes of folks following what they're directing you to do without you making your own decisions. If you make your own decision and that's what you decide to do it. But hopefully folks are in a position, this is the greatest place to be on a college campus while you're learning and questioning and challenging. Just find a way to find yourself at your own decisions and then kind of go from there, good, bad, or indifferent.
Well said. And I just, Karen P., you mentioned something interesting. You kind of hit upon the idea of a kind of a Faustian bargain, right? The idea that you sell your soul for the devil. But think about that when you see that in a movie. If somebody was selling their soul for the devil, they might say, well, give me basketball skills, and then I'll sell my soul. Right? Give me something. It's a quid pro quo. It's a this for that. You're giving something. The very idea of fame is generally seen in our society as a Faustian bargain, that you're giving up your privacy. People are going to hound you. They're going to call your number. They're going to harass your mom because you're getting paid $5 million a year. So we don't necessarily feel bad for celebrities because we say, yes, they're getting harassed, but they're cashing out. But in today's day and age, we can often become a celebrity without that bargain, right? So Ken Bone from the second debate, who became famous for his bright red Izod sweater, because I guess his other outfit he ripped it right before. He now is a celebrity in the sense that he is famous, but unless he's doing some licensing deal or endorsement deal with Izod, is not going to the bank with this. So any kind of thoughts with that? And then just pass it on here. I'll give you this mic.
Well, I think with that particular example, he didn't seek it out. So there's a difference. He just happened to have a sort of quirky sweater on. He asked a question during the debate. Can you all hear me? So that's an unusual situation. I want to go back to something that Marcus said. You know, I'm not worried about the people in this room. You're already media literate because you're here. So I'm not worried about all of you. I'm worried about people that aren't in this room, who take media for granted, and it's so omnipresent, it's almost invisible, that we don't even think about it. All of you are thinking about it, right? Critically thinking about it, which is wonderful. So I think it's a real problem. For both men and women.
One area that I'd like to come back to, because if you look at kind of our subtitle here, the rise of celebrity in the media age. So that means, right, that celebrity, it's not a kind of a fixed amount that it might, maybe used to be with sports stars and music and maybe a few other ones. So do we have any celebrities here? Right? Maybe we have some celebrities in the audience, because if we're determining celebrity by the number of followers, by a certain number of likes, then any of us theoretically could be celebrity. So Marcus or Alicia, love to kind of hear your thoughts on that. Is there a certain kind of danger with that, right? Do we now chase celebrity, or do we have a tough time determining, right, who's who? Because again, think about it. If I go on Twitter today, my indicators, kind of like our bio, was an indicator of who you are, right? How do we know, what your background is? Our indicators are the quality of our photo and the amount of people we're following versus how many followers we have, and then maybe a certification.
So I like to take this in a slightly different direction, but I want to go back to the photo piece that you're talking about. So your profile picture. So I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but I'm going to ask you to answer this question to yourself. How many people, for your profile picture, you took the picture, said, click, that's a good look, and then just posted it? Or how many of us, you're a wild boy, good for you, right? But how many folks in this room have taken a picture and then you look at it and then you're like, oh, I'm not sure. Oh, let me try another angle. Oh, I forgot the duck lips. Wait, I'm forgetting something. And then you're like, let me put the filter on it. Let me put the glamour piece on it. Let me trim this down. Let me highlight this. Let me take the red out, right? So the picture is supposed to be for the people who know you to be able to identify you and say, hey, there's Marcus Stallworth, but there's another Marcus Stallworth who's a principal in Atlanta. But there's another Marcus Stallworth that is not me. So let me put my picture so you'll be able to recognize me. But if you're putting a picture up there that barely resembles you, is that really your picture? And at what cost? So again, I want you guys to think in your mind. Some of us have friends that are on our networks that are people we've never met and we will never ever meet. And some of us say, ooh, she looks good. I'm going to send her a like or a request or whatever. There's no harm in that, because if you never see again, it didn't hurt anything, because it's just a screen. Or you'd be like, damn, he looks good, right? And you do this. So you have these pictures of these folks that you've never, ever, ever met. And you probably, very probable that you won't. But the point is, if you can't lead with your true self, even if you develop relationships, conversations, dialogues with these folks, what the heck's going on? Like, what is that relationship predicated on? Untruths, right? So when we talk about the reality piece of that, that's a real thing. And the celebrity folks, male or female, craft things that they need to be a certain way in a certain format to gain that acceptance that we were talking about earlier. So how can you exist in the world to still be connected and network, but still find a way to be relevant and not lose yourself in the middle? And I just want to say this just out loud. Thank you for saying some men are pretty. There are some pretty men out there. But men go through things too. Men want to do 150 push-ups to take a selfie with a wife beater on. Men want to not eat carbs for 3 days so they can look a certain way. It's not just females. Guys are getting calf implants, ab implants, bicep implants, facelifts, all types of augmentation. It's not just women. So this is a thing that's across the board. But if you don't have the money to do that, or you don't have the resources to do that, how could that impact how you view yourself when you wake up every morning? And we all know that how we look at ourselves every morning is how we choose to allow other people to accept and converse and treat and appreciate us. So there is a piece of that celebrity piece. If you can't reach it, like sometimes we're trying to strive for something that might just not be in your reach, right? And how do we distinguish and make the difference?
Well, on the flip side with that, though, you hear a lot of people talk about viral videos. So doesn't it seem like it's within our reach? Because a lot
Then you can make it work and you can make it spin. And I think that that's part of this American idea that anybody can be somebody. And maybe that's also this dream that we're thinking about. I just wonder how many people really have access to living this dream. Marcus, if you would say something about this access to the public sphere, because sometimes I think training high school students in using technology allows them to be part of this dialogue.
No, absolutely. So I want to take it. I'm glad you mentioned that movie. That's a great movie, but kind of tweak it into a different perspective through a different lens. So if I say love and hip hop, oh, look at the eyeballs. If you had to, can you name somebody on Love and Hip Hop? Anybody? He's like, yeah, kind of, sort of, right? What's a reality show that you might watch? Anybody in the room? Yes. I can't hear you. Flavor of Love? Is that still on? No? Flavor of Love? Wait. It might be somewhere, right? So I just want to just take a quick moment on talk about reality shows, right? So even if it's Keeping Up with the Kardashians or Real Housewives of New Jersey, like thinking about the best day you ever had in your whole life, right? Maybe it was like graduation when you got all those envelopes or whatever, right? Think about that great day. Was the next day that great? And the next day? And the next day? So how is it that we have series that are on for series and series? I had some pretty good days in my life, right? But they're not all 26 minutes with commercial. Isn't that coincidental, right? And isn't it ironic that they could say next week on ... but this is supposed to be reality show, right? But then you have the security guys, not when they fake it, but when they come in and do all that stuff is scripted, right? So it's giving you a skewed lens of what it is, and then guess what? They call it reality. But those folks haven't developed something in their basement. Those folks haven't done anything, but because they're in the public eye, they found themselves on these shows. I mean, there's no real talent to be married to somebody who's in jail, who's connected to a syndicate. But you show these folks at 11 in the morning drinking, going from their Range Rover to their Porsche, and nobody works, and they have all of these things. So when you look at that stuff, you go, wow, that's pretty cool. And then you start going, well, look at my life. I don't have those things. And then you start looking around, and you can have a great male or a great female and a great partner. And you're like, what have you done for me lately, right? And you start to reevaluate things and say, what is it? And they're a regular guy, so why can't I do that? So, or a regular girl. So there is a piece that this celebrity piece can take folks in a good way or a bad way. So if you guys are looking at things like World Star Hip Hop or even things on regular YouTube, people are becoming famous for being knocked out, right? People are being famous for trying to light themselves on fire, right? People are being famous for doing all types of crazy things that will probably have an impact down the road, but to get what? Those couple of minutes of fame or that level of attention. And for some people, the risk, the reward outweighs the risk, at least right now. But some of those things are long term, and what we're discovering is there's a great portion of folks, they say, "Ugh, it was cool in the moment, but when you have things that are following you back 10, 15 years, it's a different thing." And I don't want to commend the time, but I just want to share this. There was a point in time where you could do something, and it was done. And if nobody saw it, it's like, prove it. Walk down the street. Tell me where you can't see a camera on the highway, on the corner, outside of the bodega, coming out of class. There's a camera filming right now. So somebody's always seeing something. How does that play out in the big picture?
All right, a lot we can explore with reality shows. So who in the audience, who wants to be on a reality show? Anybody here? Right. Karen or Marcus, some of you, are we turning into commodities then? Right? Do we get the wrong perception that we, if we're creating a viral video, that we are loved, right? We're the one that 10 million people are watching, but then to find out our next video, only 48 people watch. Does that mean that we're kind of just a fill in the blank commodity as opposed to being desired? Yeah, Marcus.
So that's a good question. So I'm going to make a little disclosure here. So outside of, I definitely agree that's important in your life to do your best to stay relevant and it's not a horrible thing to reinvent yourself. Don't be afraid to try different things and new things, right? So before all of this world, I used to spend some time in the music industry. So time out. Usually right when I start getting here, people's ears start perking up and they'll be like, oh, do you know this person? Did you work with this person? Did you write music for this person? Probably. And then I lose them. They're gone. Because the first thing they want to do is they want to go online. They want to find me and see if they can find it. But you won't find it under that name. Although a couple people have already are following me on Twitter. And I intentionally set this up before we came here. There was not really any followers, but it's just amazing how that works, right? So with that being said, so there was a point in time, and there used to be a show on BET called 106 in Park, right? And they used to have this segment called Freestyle Fridays, and it was a whole thing, blah, 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 right? So, does that look familiar to you? Right? So I was the Freestyle Friday champion of blah, 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 many, many moons ago. But similar to what we were talking about before, the shows would film on Wednesdays, even though it was Freestyle Fridays. There was a clause that I cannot speak about anything prior to Friday. So even when I would go on 93.7 or do whatever and do interviews, I'd have to say, oh, well, we'll see what happens later today, already knowing if I won or lost already, right? So there's that piece. But it got to a point, and this is way before social media is what it is now, but when I would go places, like it started to cause complications in my household because people would recognize me, people would come up to me, and people would be rude, and I could be with whoever, talking about whatever, and they would just like, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. So I also did some work in the social work arena, and it got to the point where I would have to do home visits, with families, and folks would be like, oh yeah, sure, let's schedule a visit. And when I would come to the visit, guess who's at the door? 17 other people from the projects are like, you see, I told you that was my social worker, right? It was a real, decisions had to be made, right? But take that and magnify that. So I've been on video sets. We've done the things in the jury and the cars and all that stuff. Most of the rappers and artists that you see on TV, they don't own that stuff. It's not real. It's rented. It's rented. You need to know that. Those models are paid. They don't, it's important that people know that. And I understand you guys are progressive and forward in this room, but everybody doesn't necessarily understand that. And there are a few people who say, yeah, I shot 100 people, yeah, I sold a whole bunch of drugs, and I'm still here. There's that many people that have a sliver of that truth. But what it sends a message to everybody else, well, if I go and download beats from this app on my phone, I could be the next Swiss Beats, or I could be the next Kanye West, or I could be the next ABC. So it just alleviates the whole middle piece of knowing yourself, finding an audience, networking, putting that foot pavement work down. It just gives an illusion that if you just sit behind the screen and you do this, that could happen to you. And I'm not saying that it can't happen to you, but I'd probably put my money on the lightning happened. And that's not to try to be negative with folks, but it's very important that people know that. And I work with people that you see on TV today, right now, who still live on the third floor apartment or live at Nana's house in the Bronx. But you wouldn't see that on television, right? So while you're aspiring to look for something else, these folks are already either onto something different or they know it's not real. And the folks who are really, really making moves in that way, they don't let their own kids watch that stuff on TV or listen to their own music. I was one of them. So think about that. But we're putting that out there for other folks for consumption, hoping that you're going to consume and buy it, but we wouldn't, that's not our own reality. So there's a part of just being adults where I think that we're recognizing that you guys aren't just bodies, and there needs to be a level of transparency, and that's what is starting to happen. But it also relies on you guys to continue to do that great critical thinking that you guys are doing.
And produce. But good point, Marcus, about that. I know Connecticut's own 50 Cent. I don't know if he sold the house yet in Farmington, but he got in some issue with the same idea, perception versus reality, because he was going through bankruptcy, and at the same time, the judge said, well, what are you talking about? Let's look at your social media feed. You're driving a Bentley. You're throwing $100 bills out the window, kind of idea. And he had to say, listen, that's all for show. That's all for show. But looking at the time right now, Margaret, do we want to open it up for questions? Do you want to take this mic, or do you have another one?
David, you made a good analogy where you said that things like YouTube or any of those social media are like a lottery ticket. And I think in a way that's a really good analogy because it is like a lottery ticket. The risk is low. You pay a low amount of money, but the reward, the payoff is huge. So what do you think about that? And so some of us may want to invest in trying to become well-known or become somewhat of a celebrity. How do we manage that risk? Is it okay to take that risk, to buy a lottery ticket and try to use YouTube as a vehicle to become more well-known?
So thank you for asking that question. So I'll speak for myself, but I'm thinking I could speak for folks on the panel. We're not saying that all media is bad. There's a definite place for that. So we want to just be abundantly clear to say that. But there's ways that you can use that networking to broaden and increase recognition and exposure to what it is that you're doing. So I'll be careful what I say because I know we're recording, but on a talk show yesterday or the day before, they had a particular individual on a talk show who's on the Shark Tank, and she was giving some free advice for somebody who wanted to broaden her visibility and start a small business. And some of the things she said were very simple and very profound, and it circulated around getting some folks around you who believe in you, that you believe in them, and they trust in what the product is, and then use those networks to spread the word. So if you're spreading things that way, media is an amazing thing. I mean, we can use that even if it's for like an Amber Alert or something. It's a great opportunity to get information out quickly. So there's definitely a place for that. And, you know, arguably, there doesn't necessarily have to be such a trade-off in terms of compromise of moral composition or personal self. It's just using a platform for positive means, right?
I agree. Yeah, you know, use it for networking, absolutely. Twitter's great for that. I would be very careful the visuals you put out because you can't.
Positive means, right?
I agree. Yeah, you know, use it for networking, absolutely. Twitter's great for that. I would be very careful the visuals you put out because you can't ever erase them. Her company paid her to go to school so that she can find old photos of all of you. So if you apply for that job, she's going to look to see what you are and get a sense of who you are. And you might say, oh, that was when I was in college. Oh, that was when I was in high school. They don't care. So they're looking for a portfolio and trying to get a sense of who you are. And those photographs just don't go away. Neither do things you say or, on social networking. That's the negative. The positive, you can, like you said, you can recreate yourself, and you can really put out a very, very good image of yourself. If you
One thing that I'm also thinking of as I'm listening is how much hatred and negative judgment comes across social media. So we talked at dinner about this issue that teenagers are folding because somebody posts something in a social media realm, and there's a lot of criticism, and they don't know how to deal with this negativity. But I just wonder what you think might be an outcome of this new, so to say, permission to call each other liars and unreliable and nasty and you know, bullying each other on media platforms. I don't know, Marcus, you deal a lot with young students. How do they deal with this kind of bullying that goes on?
Well, I'll just kind of say this brief. Just know that cyberbullying, internet bullying, all of that stuff is a real thing. It's not just kids, it's adults, male, female, whatever. But words hurt, sticks and stones. Not really sure who made that, but words do hurt, and people do take action from that. And you can have all these arguments about why folks are different today than back in the day. Doesn't matter. In that moment, if that's somebody's reality or how they feel based on what other people are saying about them, people are entitled to how they feel. So when whoever posts something, put it out there, even in personal relationships, you're upset, you text something, you send an email, it's out there. You can't, it's not that easy to take it back, right? So there are impacts that happen, and there are folks every day who are saying, I can't escape social media. Somebody said something horrible about me. I fell. People videotaped it. I had toilet paper on my pants. I tripped on the stage at high school graduation, whatever it is. And the anonymous feedback from so many people, for some folks, their decision is, maybe I need to put a conclusion to some of this pain and suffering that I'm feeling. So it is a real thing, and you never know, the impact that those words can happen. The same way it could be negative in one way, words can be equally distributed in a positive way.
We generally find it permissible in American society to be very critical of our celebrities, right? We can criticize, we can say terrible things about their marriage. If we're talking about Angelina and Brad Pitt, we can say
That we are still in the infancy. There are all these possibilities, but we don't really know yet how they will pan out.
So I'll just say really quickly, because I heard your question a little differently. So when I heard it, when you were asking about regulations, like should there be some, regulatory limitations on what people can put out there and how they can do that, I'm not sure if that's part of where you were going. But so here's what's happening. So folks in this room, like the marketers and folks, they know this stuff. They refer to folks, you guys in this room are folks who have the most what we refer to as disposable income. So you have income coming in, but very little overhead, like not a rent or a mortgage or a car note for many folks, whatever the case is. So a lot of their marketing and advertisement is intentional. So even for our documentary, when we interviewed some of these folks who have some products that are out there that can be questionable, the most frequent response that we received was, it's not up to us to make moral decisions for the consumer. We're within our right to make a product and put it out there. And if they decide to purchase it, it's on them. So my thought is, with that online exposure, it's very similar because of amendments. We have to be very careful, but it's up to the individual or the folks connected who safeguard individuals to make those decisions about access. What are you deciding to, thank you for that, engage in, and how does that spread apart? So just kind of something to think about.
I think the real regulation should come from, we're doing it here, encouraging media literacy.
Close up. So I want to thank everybody here for being with us on Hump Day. Great event. Happy Media Literacy Week. Again, go to medialiteracyweek.us, sign the pledge, join up, see the other events, stay involved. In addition, afterwards, please talk to all of our lovely panelists. I'm sure they'll be happy to continue the conversation. Margaret, thank you for planning this event at Post University. Give a big welcome, warm welcome to our panelists. Thank you.